Live.
Right.
Good morning.
Good morning. Perfect timing.
Sort of.
Right. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to our last risk and insurance meeting, and let's open with the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangi District Council, we thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities in our district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. Everyone can ask for apologies, but we've now got everyone here. So welcome. Public forum. There's no public forum I've been advised of. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest that need to be declared? There are none. Confirmation of the order of business. I've got no dead items and I'm happy to proceed as per the agenda. First item therefore becomes the confirmation of our minutes held 19th of June, taken as read. No any corrections or comments. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Dave. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Simon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Next item, 7.1, follow-up actions from our previous meetings.
On page.
Yeah.
Page 14.
Page 14.
Cool. Through the chair, I can follow up on two of them. So the health and safety schedule and annual site visits, that will appear as part of our due diligence program and feed into the inductions with the new council. The contractor health and safety metrics and the number of reviews and site assessments, we are not able to provide that. That would be an extremely manual process of going through every manager who has contracts in place. And at this stage, we just do not have that tool to do that.
I absolutely appreciate that, right? But I think, this is part of our, that word of assurance in our committee, right? And I'm looking at the man with the biggest conflict to my right. And I'm thinking about this, and I've been looking through some options. I wonder, do you do formal audits, like you actually then will do a major audit, right? And actually go and actually look at a contractor in detail rather than just a normal site visit as part of your due diligence?
I'm just going to hand that to Sharon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I believe
Yeah.
we have steps in place, but I'll let Sharon give you that detail if that's okay.
So currently my understanding of most project site visits is it is looking at a range of things, health and safety being one of those.
Yeah.
So it's project completion, quality, and health and safety is what our contractor managers are looking at.
And what's the internal audit that we're doing later this year with that the less award course?
So we do a Safe Plus assessment every 2 years as part of the risk and insurance work program. That assessment looks both internally and externally. So contractor health and safety is part of that assessment, but the assessment goes much broader than that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a way, I totally accept what you're saying, right? If you have a system in place, but I'm saying, is there a way of, so the example I use and is the Auckland City Council case, where there was a contract that they said they were going to maintain their fleet to a required standard, and that the rubbish truck brakes had failed. Had they actually had a program in place to check, make sure the vehicles were up to standard, then that accident would have happened if the council would, because they're a PCPU, they have no formal process of actually doing a deep dive into any of their contractors. And because of that, the court said you have failed in your duty as a PCB and we're fining you $500,000. Thank you very much, right? And you also saw that in the recent case of Fulton Hogan and NZTA with a truck that didn't have a certificate of fitness, and it caused an accident and a person was killed. So to me, it's not just the normal. The bit that keeps me awake at night is we've got to have all councils as a PCBU, we should have a program of randomly sampling contractors and doing a serious deep dive into their health and safety, not just site visits.
Taking that on board.
Yeah.
Just if I can add to that, through Mr. Chair, we completely agree with what you're saying, and we completely agree with you identifying that as a major risk. I think we are working towards a system that is more fail-proof than what we have now. We just don't have all of that in place right now. It is a bit more challenging for us with our staff levels. We don't have teams of people that can do stuff. But we've identified that and we'll work.
Yeah, I think it's really important, right? That, as part of our role is we're getting assurance, right? So it's that how with the limitations of everything we've got, what's a good way of actually saying how can we actually get assurance? Councillor Simon?
Through you, the chair, does every contractor submit a health and safety, their health and safety program to council?
Sharon, I'm just going to pass it to Sharon, but yes, we have, they have to sit under a site wire. I get the two of the contracts mixed up. I'll let Sharon speak on it, but yes.
Yeah, through the chair. So every contractor is expected to be within SiteWise. If they don't have the ability to be within SiteWise, they're required to submit a robust health and safety plan.
And through the chair, the other part we do, Sharon and our health and safety officer also meet with all of our managers that have the significant contracts. We have a process in place that they need to follow, and they've just met with them and they'll continue to do to see where we as in our health and safety duties can support the staff.
Just a bit more detail on that. So for the larger contracts, the health and safety portion forms a big part of 3910 standard contract. It is covered there in a lot of detail. And then in the tender, there's a whole section on health and safety and how they propose to manage their site. The site is theirs. We just need to check that they do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I guess
So
that's
So the health and safety is really covered in a lot of detail. It's just the audit part of it.
it's just a check. And I was just thinking about the rubbish trucks, we've got contractors doing our rubbish. Do we do a spot check every now and then that they are doing the maintenance on their trucks, or they have a program? Maybe it's things like that. We'll put our thinking cap on for the next program.
I think put your thinking cap on, and is there a smart way of doing it without adding huge amounts of work to the staff and creating positions, and that's not what it's all about. It's about thinking smart. How can we actually get that, and then how can we, as governors, get assurance that that is actually getting done? That's all I'm asking. Mayor Andy.
Yeah, there is a requirement if there is an incident, absolutely, for a report to be given by those contractors back to us in terms of their investigation, and that's come in front of council a couple of times as a report back.
I know in my last world, when we were building the new building, so we had a big contract with Naylor Love, and they reported monthly as part of their reporting on, and they're building for us, so obviously, but on all of their health and safety meetings and any events or nemesis.
Can staff just explain what SiteWise is? Is it just a platform that you submit documentation into? Has SiteWise got any checks and balances themselves within what people are doing or say?
Yeah, sure. Happy to explain. So SiteWise is a external database and assessor, And so a contractor has to meet a certain amount of criteria to be pre-qualified in Sitewise. And our standard is that they must be at least 75% qualified in Sitewise. Sitewise reassesses that every year. So Sitewise tells us that they can work safely, that they have the policies, procedures and frameworks to work safely. Site audits tell us that they do work safely.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Picky on the screen. Thank you.
Morena koutou. Thank you for that explanation. As you've said, Chair, this isn't about trying to make things harder for necessarily for our staff. I would be looking at trying to put, just as a suggestion, have we thought about trying to put the onus back on contractors themselves? And I think that it has been said that people are to provide reports. Let's try and put the onus more on them to reporting into us, as opposed to us having to report into them, as another way of potentially thinking about where our team doesn't have to be deep down into things monthly or for whatever time period to get the information that we're needing. But I agree that it needs to be. We need to ensure that we have our eyes over it in some way, shape, or form.
I can reply to that. It's a good question, Councillor. That already happens. So for every contract, that's part of the contract that they have to report on all health and safety. They have to show us all their registers. They have to show us the whole system. So that already happens. What this is an independent audit that's kind of thrown at them when they don't expect it, to see that they are actually doing everything that they say they're doing.
Councillor.
Yeah, just
Dave,
thank you, Chair. Just as a potential way forward for this, it occurs to me that perhaps we should just check if we haven't already gotten our procurement process and our contractual arrangements. The council reserves the right to spot audit. If we haven't got words to that effect or something like that within there, would be perhaps be a good place to start.
Yeah, can I just summarise with the issue, in my opinion, right? It's actually staff are doing that. Well, when they're going out to do their normal site visits, they're checking health and safety stuff, but they're also doing other stuff as well. And it's about having a process that enables them to say, yes, we have checked. Now, that's the bit we're missing. It's not them not doing it. It's the system and process to get that report back into the council system and then summarise back up to here. That's the challenge.
We're working on that.
So I think staff are working on it. We could just keep on thinking of ways of how we could do it smarter. Be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so any further comments or questions on this? So we've got a recommendation there that the report follow-up actions from the audit, so risk and assurance meetings be received. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fee. Do I have a seconder? I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Next item is the Chair's report. Take it as read. Councillor Simon.
Just a question. You talked about developer levies, and you suggested that it's unlikely to solve the issue of cost development in rural and provincial sectors. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So I sat in a session at local government conference on this, and basically, the idea is that the likes of the bigger councils, when they do a development, they often have different processes depending on which council authority is it, and the development community is saying is, why should Auckland have one process, one act, and another, Christchurch another, Selwyn another. They all want it. So the government is saying, yes, we agree with that. There should be the same process, but it's designed for big. When you look at the detail underneath, it's for large urban developments, like 100 lots minimum, right? And 300 or 400 lots. And the idea is that the developer will pay a portion, and then the ratepayer will pay a portion on an ongoing basis for any shortfall. So what's going to happen if you've got a 25 lot subdivision, or it's relatively easy, but you've got to have the right processes in place to cater for that. When I challenged the DIA staff, they said it's not designed for small developments. It's designed for large urban developments, and that's what the legislation is actually referred to. If you look at the background information, it's large urban development. So it's not going to solve the small councils that have got spasmodic growth. It's not, so that's the challenge. It's going to be development contributions will be replaced by development levies. I did challenge them on that. Go, so if you've got a development contribution policy, where does that leave the small councils? Oh, this is quite very interesting. We are making submissions that financial contributions under the RMA should remain. Okay, and that's quite a challenging process as well. So there's been a pressure group applied. Government has said yes, this is going to work for these, and then the other councils are going to be different on. That's the risk that I see in this. And the legislation won't. Well, they're talking is originally September. We're in September. There's no word on when that's likely to be released. So it's coming, but we just don't know what for. So again, but that's a symptom of what government are actually doing. There's all these changes. You've got the building reform, you've got the RMA reform, you've got the stock plan, which has impacted you and many other councils. So this is the problem we have actually got at the moment, or the risk we've got at the moment. Councillor Simon?
Just, can you clarify, development levies, is that going to be a blanket?
There won't be a blanket fee, there'll be a blanket process.
Yes. Our council presently has a development contribution policy, but it doesn't require a contribution unless it's going to impact our infrastructure in some way or form that reaches a certain level. Is this saying that there's going to be a development levy full stop to any development, or is it still left up to councils to make it?
It'll be still up to the council's discretion whether they have it or not, but there's going to be a defined process that you've actually got to have. But at the moment, you can, there is in the Local Government Act, there is a criteria. The criteria will, and the way I read the background, will actually be even more defined. It's almost like the formula, which at the moment is not in the act.
No, and just a bit more detail, if it's helpful, Councillor Simon, is at the moment, the way to calculate those contributions is really complex, and it's very difficult to figure out if it's accurate or not. I think a lot of developers feel they are being overcharged, and it's impossible to actually pinpoint if that is the case or not, or where the money is spent. So I think all of this is to try and remedy all those problems, but it's always more complex than what people think.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different examples of it.
Councillor Freeman.
So through the chair, can I ask then, with the system Rangatiki runs, how do developers feel? They also feel overcharged?
That's a good question. Through you, Mr. Chair, because we have developer agreements, and I think they feel a lot better about it, because it's a negotiation with the developer to see what infrastructure needs to be upgraded, but also where there is gain for both parties. So potentially they can upgrade a pipe in lieu of a park that they will create, or whatever other mechanism we can negotiate with them that's got the same dollar value, but both parties actually win in the agreement. Where if you just apply the recipe, people feel maybe that's not quite right.
Yeah, I think there are two aspects to this. The first aspect is that they realise the law says that we cannot charge a contribution unless there is a definable impact on our network. But the other beauty of it is it becomes a negotiated process, and so both both parties can come and say, these are our concerns. And there becomes a discussion as to how best they can be solved jointly. So, and I think that negotiation has worked very well. For instance, we had one contractor that had capability in being able to, replace some of the network. And they said, we have the skills and equipment to be able to do that. So there was a negotiated outcome. I think that's useful.
I think the developer agreement is an optimal way to go, but you've got to have a development contribution policy to actually insist on having a development agreement. Councillor Simon.
Just a couple of comments. Just talking to Councillor Wilson before, rates capping looms and council will need to find other ways to gain income to service its needs. And so everything might be turned on its head a little bit.
Yep. Again, yeah, absolutely. And this is right. We've been told it's coming. We don't know in what form. Right? And there's also saying we won't be capping essential needs. We'll only be capping nice to haves, and we're going to copy what's happening in New South Wales, which is, I understand from talking to some people there, hasn't been a rip-roaring success. So all we're doing, I'm not trying to debate rates capping the consequences of all of it. I'm saying is this is the level of change that's being forced upon us by central government at a relatively fast pace.
The second issue is we're heading into local water done well, and so there's going to be a separation of that function. And I know in Auckland to get water, you've got to pay a certain amount of money to get connected. If you don't pay, you don't get connected. So it's been an issue up there. So that may be taken out of our hands.
Any other comments on my report?
I don't know where to raise this and which sections of the report. So I thought the easiest issue is to raise it now. In terms of the greatest risks that I see against our organisation, they're not internal risks. The external climate that we're operating in is fraught with risk.
Yes.
Yes, certainly the red meat sector and dairy at the moment performing incredibly well, and dairy it's forecast to continue. So that sector is stable, but just about all of our industrial sector, our manufacturing sectors, small business are under incredible pressure. And there's the effect of what we're seeing is the effect of tariffs and those sorts of environments. We are dependent on a very small number of the larger employers, and some of those are under threat. And I see the biggest risk we face as an organisation is the affordability within those sectors and possibly whether they continue to operate. And I don't know where to put it across the Audit and Risk Committee, but that to me is by far our biggest risk that we face. Yeah, and you mentioned, for instance, this Ruapehu situation. We're not too dissimilar.
Yeah, I think it's likely we're going to have two classes of people, if that's the right word, right? In terms of a risk, we're going to have the sectors that are doing really well with the dairy, right? And even within communities, right? You're going to have some people who are really, really, really struggling, right? And that divide is a challenge, particularly when it comes to collecting of our rates, because we actually don't know what people's incomes are. All we know is what their property is worth. Okay, we don't know whether they've got employment, whether they've got other investments or not. We just don't. We can't. Right? And I think this is an issue for the whole sector and across the whole country. I don't know what the answer is.
But that's the issue. But we're unwise if we don't consider it.
Anything further on my report? Happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Andy. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Next item is item 9.1, page 16, the Risk and Assurance Committee Work Programme. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. I'll just take the paper as read and just highlight a few points in this report. On the whole, you'll see, as we agreed a few months back, the reports that are due monthly or updates that are due quarterly versus 6 monthly versus 12 months. There's a couple of policies that were due to review, staff standards of integrity and conduct due. It was due this quarter, so it's actually undergoing a legal review, and we'll present that in December. The health, safety and wellbeing policy, that is also in progress, and we want to just make sure we got that right before we present it, so that too will come in December. You'll note my own noting the current areas of concern, and there's quite a bit in there. Obviously around local water done well, the reforms and changes that you've spoken about, but then it's also a busy year. It's just the way it all collides at the moment. So obviously we've got an annual report going, we've got an annual plan in progress. We're also looking at our long-term plan. We've also got a lot of work to be done to ensure our assets and liabilities within the Three Waters assets are correctly accounted for, and that everything aligns so that we understand what we're handing over 1 July 2027, but also that we've got our overheads assessed correctly so we know what is being retained as stranded overheads. And so there's quite a bit of work there. And of course it's an election year, and that can also cause a revisit of planned programs of work, and so that can create a little bit of I wouldn't say disruption, it's not quite the right word, but it can cause pause. And then of course we also need to factor in a number of workshops as part of that induction process. So it's just a tad on the busy side right now for a lot of people right across the council, including our elected members. We put in a new section into this report, which is the staff turnover annual update. The executive team felt this was a good place to have this, and it's just reflecting the turnover for the year ending 30 June 25 at 13.4%. And it is a reduction of the last couple of years. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that the market has tightened again, and it's loosened, and staff, while they're the opportunity staff, are actually staying put in a number of sectors across New Zealand. So it has slowed down, which is good. Fraud reporting, there has been no fraud related incidents actually in my whole time that I've been here. And I did send out a reminder to staff this month on our responsibilities as staff and how to recognise red flags, and emphasising the more we talk about it, the easier it is for people to raise issues, and that's really good. So we just keep talking. It's our best form of defence. Finally, I had the draft risk management policy for review, and I've attached that for feedback, please.
Thank you. Comments? I've got Councillor Simon.
I just, thanks for that report, very good. And I like the staff turnover and update. It's good to have that in here. I'd like to tie that together with 3.3.4, and just the fact that we have little staff turnover and the workload is quite high. Does staff fatigue become a political issue or a risk within council?
Through the chair, there is that risk, and one of the measures we put in place is that we as managers and group managers get regular reports on leave outstanding, and we drive a behaviour to reflect that we need our staff to take leave, and we put in programs with the staff that have high leave balances so that we can actually ensure they take their leave, because our best form of defence from fatigue is ensuring we use our leave.
Councillor Fee.
I just was just tossing around the inclusion of climate change and the purpose there, or introduction, sorry.
On the policy we talked about, sorry.
Yeah.
Page 22 about.
Yeah.
And so my initial thinking was around the cost to the ratepayer. You know, we could throw a whole lot of money around climate change, but it could be deemed unaffordable as we're trying to keep our rates at a reasonable level. And then, you know, weighing up the other side of that is, can we be deemed to be doing very little? So I was just, that was what I was toiling with.
Through the chair, so I hear that. In our risk register, we do refer to climate change. I think it is something we should have in here. That doesn't mean we're going to go and invest lots of money doing all sorts of things, but I think we'd be remiss not to have an awareness of it. We know that our weather patterns have changed, and that takes an impact across New Zealand. And even if we're not directly impacted, we often are supporting others. So we have staff that were in Nelson. So I think it needs to be part of our awareness. That doesn't mean we go out and start budgeting large sums of money against our ratepayers. Thank you.
Councillor Simon?
Thanks for the update on the risk policy. I like your introduction. It's I'm not quite sure what it replaced, but if it's
It
good.
didn't exist.
Didn't
Anything
exist,
that is
yeah.
replaced,
Yeah.
will have a line through it and anything
I got that
new,
impression.
yeah. So it was, we're just adding and looking at recommendations.
I was trying to work out, reading the policy, how does this committee fit into that policy? And I don't really see anywhere in that policy that this committee has some connection with it. I'm just trying to understand that. There's a couple of mentions of elected members, but it's more in the right of, you know, locals at risk. But how does this committee work with this policy? And how does the policy work with the council?
Through the chair, there's a few ways. So noting that whenever we talk about staff, contractors and volunteers, elected members are part of that. So the responsibility of risk sits with everyone who is associated with RDC in some shape or form as a staff, elected member, and so forth. This is one of 3 documents. And if you recall, I want to say in November, it might have been early 2025, I brought the risk register to this committee, and we will continue to do that. So we have 3 documents. We have the risk register that covers the detail of the risk, and this committee reviews that and understands what we as exec and our staff have implemented. We have a risk appetite, and that's coming to you next once this policy's been agreed. And the risk appetite's a really important one for this committee, because that actually accepts what we will or won't accept. We cannot mitigate every single risk as much as we would like to. We can't put us all in bubbles, but we have to agree that appetite, what risk are we prepared to wear? And that's a big part of this committee. And that will be that policy will come in December.
Is that reflected in that in this policy?
Yes, it does talk about the 3 policies here. I'm just going to find where I just spotted it, but it is
So on
in here.
page 22.
Go.
Yeah, I've got a similar but different question, right? So what I have seen elsewhere, right, is actually having a risk policy framework that includes the strategy, the appetite, and all in one place, because I see what's missing here, as I sort of understand where Councillor Simon's coming from, is the reporting of risks. So at what level do risks get reported within the organisations? Operational risks, they're dealt with normally by management. Emerging risks and critical risks should be coming up to potentially this committee or council. So that is the bit that's missing. And the last bit that's missing from this, right, which I think is probably elsewhere, it's we've talked about our appetite, but it's actually the risk levels. What is the likelihood and the consequences? So we've got this inconsistency across both governance and management. And that to me is maybe what we've got is a fragmented.
Because that's in the actual risk register we brought to
In
you
the
earlier.
risk register,
And
yeah.
it's very clear the levels.
Yeah, I understand that, but to me, right, the bit I've seen, we've actually, you've got all that in a policy document or strategy document, rather than your current process of actually having it in different places. And I think that might answer Councillor Simon's question.
Yeah, it's a really interesting subject because on one hand, government is suggesting to councils that you should be prepared to take on more risk, especially in the areas of traffic management, and the move to a risk-based assessment on health and safety. There have been instances where council has acted not outside the building regulations, because the building regulations will say that there are levels in which council can make a decision. And council had deemed in those occasions not to take any risk, for instance, on fire safety, but was prepared to take some risks around other matters relating to the Building Acts. So those have come, but they've always come as individual cases and possibly there's merit in that because their circumstances are so different. So that's absolutely where this committee and council gets involved in that space.
Just on that, is that a risk in itself? That the council is prepared to take that risk, but the standards are there for a reason.
Yeah, but the standards are there, but within those standards and acts is the option for council to consider. So those are situations where, because without it, without it coming to audit and risk or council, the responsibility sits directly on top of the chief executive. And so this is a process where the chief executive can come to council and say, this is outside of the standard of the Building Act. However, you may wish to consider this as a potential solution. You know, for instance, if you were doing up a building and the handrail was 2 inches under the legal required, that it's possible to have a process where that came to council for consideration.
And just support the mayor of that one. The issue is, so that's council saying, all these things considered, we're prepared to take that risk, or council could say, no, we're not prepared to take that risk. That is absolutely the domain of council. It's not the domain of, I don't believe, and that's the right process, right? That should actually happen, right? So, no, we're probably getting a little bit off subject in terms of the risk management policy. Councillor Simon?
This is a question around defining what this committee does. This policy is a policy that goes up towards this committee, and that at each level there's risk assessment, and as things go, it goes up towards the committee. The committee is therefore reactive. Is this committee proactive? What's the role of this committee? Can you just elaborate?
The role of I won't, right? The role of the committee is defined by council, so the opportunity for, I think it's probably, it's to me is that should be, the role of the committee should be set by the new council, and probably will be, I would imagine early November.
Early 26.
Sorry? Well, when you set your committees up?
So the onus, technically the onus is on whoever is mayor to set in place the structure of council and the committee structure. That tends to be done in relationships with staff and sometimes decision with councillors. The staff may well then come back and say, well, you haven't set up a committee to deal with this. This is the consequence of that, and suggest changes. But this committee has a responsibility to see that several practices are being reviewed and in place, and that future risks are being assessed.
And just to respond a little bit, if I may, to Councillor Loudon, this comes to this committee to review and recommend but it is an executive policy. And they actually accept and agree this policy, but it comes through here.
Okay,
If you look at this, and if you look at the report,
yeah, I've got a problem with that. With it being an executive policy.
Just a quick.
Because, can I just
Yeah,
finish?
yeah, please.
So the issue is if it's an executive policy, what you're saying is that staff are actually making the decisions on risk, right? It should actually be council that actually adopts this, not staff.
Correct.
Sorry, I actually reject that, right? And I couldn't advise, right? Supporting that it become, to me is, yes, staff administer it, they bring it to this committee, it's then recommended to council, because the risk ultimately stops with council. Right?
I'm just going to clarify that it stops with the CE. She or he will be the one who, if you look at the Port of Auckland, it's the CE that's on trial.
That's for health and safety.
Yeah.
But if council is making it, if the CE does not make a decision on the Building Act, it's council. Sorry. Right, it's right. If council can resolve, council's the final decision maker. It's council who will be taken to court, not the CE, apart from health and safety. I understand health and safety, absolutely.
If I can, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Councillor Allen, really good question. We got to remind ourselves, this committee, the real focus of this committee is actually the organisational strategic risks. And that has got a long-term view of things that might come at us, how we would deal with them, how we would organise the organisation around those things. I think it has a long-term future view more than anything. And I think we need to remind ourselves at this committee is not to look at the day-to-day operational things. That really is up to staff. I think the missing link in the whole conversation is the structure or the framework of how it works. So what you should do as a committee is set the appetite
Correct.
of where you would like that risk and then to allow staff to get on with it.
Absolutely.
What we then need to do is report back against those things and the appetite. And you should then reflect and go, yeah, that's about where we want that setting for the cost. So I feel that this committee absolutely has a long-term view and is proactive rather than reactive. We should not be in that reactive space.
Yep. Councillor Dave.
Yes, please. Just to say, I think we're kind of missing one point. This is a policy. What we should be also considering is what is the procedure to make sure the policy is adhered to. And that's where we should be thinking, because if you've got this policy, I want to know that there is a procedure that when council is making decisions or staff are making decisions or staff are considering contracts or whatever it is, I want to know that there's some sort of reporting back and it comes through the risk reporting matrix that we've already seen and has been identified through to council as being high or low or medium. There's their opportunity to challenge and go, hang on a minute, I think this might be a little bit out of kilter. So it's actually the procedure that I want to know is being followed correctly to adhere to the policy.
Yeah, which comes down to the name of this committee.
Yes.
So we set, right, agree with Arno, right?
Yes.
We set the risk policy, including the appetite. Then we get assurance from the staff that that policy is being complied with. And here is the assurance / evidence. This is what we're actually doing in terms of your overall direction. Absolutely correct. And that's.
Yeah, so the government focuses absolutely on asking the country to accept periods of risk.
Yep.
Look at the RMA reforms. They're all about this sort of subject. You know, the whole fast tracking processes and so on. The government ministers accept there is some risk, but it moves the GDP of the country on dramatically. That's the environment we're operating in.
Yep. So what you're saying is this current government has a high risk tolerance for certain things.
Correct.
And low risk for other things.
And our funding for NZTA will be impacted by their tolerance.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, can I suggest, I like the idea of a documented framework of how we think it all works. And I think if that's created and put down on a piece of paper and we can all see it, then I think that will be
I
of
think
value.
that's that would be the next cab off the rank, right?
Will not be done for December.
No,
just
that's
going to be very clear here.
No, not all. Right? I mean, this is an iterative process, absolutely, right? I'm not trying to burn people, right? I'm just trying to get the right understanding of roles, responsibilities, and once we've agreed that, then we can say, look, we need to do this. Oh, we don't have the resources to do it. When's the best time to do it? Right? Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So just circling back then, right? No pressure, Leanne, right? You would anticipate that if this committee is in its current form, would come back in the March meeting with those documents.
No, I do not anticipate doing that by March. I'm sorry, I don't, through the chair. I need to look at my work program with my CE.
Yeah.
I've got a huge amount of work with not only an annual plan that needs a lot of work done on it. I've also got a local water done well, significant piece of work on my normal BAU. I'm not committing to coming back in March with a whole new revamp. That's a lot of work. I know how much work it took me to do this one.
Yeah, I was going to illustrate exactly this sort of point. For instance, if you go to 3.3.2 in terms of the assessment rates assessment under local water done well, that is going to be a phenomenal amount of work that has to be done prior to 27,
I'll do that
28.
onto the 26 annual plan.
And the unbundling of
Oh.
and separation there, it cannot be done just alongside the LTP. A huge amount of work is going to have to be done prior to that, because we have UAGCs that will need to be unbundled in some shape or form.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the workload. It's just phenomenal.
Totally agree, right? And that's why I was being a bit, I was fishing, right, and got a good bite, right? It's, to me, this is what, and I think this is a really important discussion, right? That almost needs to be had, right? It's in December, right? Without actually, and saying is, what is the work of, what's the role of this committee over the next triennium, right? And what's the resources that we need? And if the resources aren't there, what does it actually mean? Because I think that's the issue, right? Absolutely the same, we've got limited resources. So what does it mean? Because that might actually mean we've got a higher risk appetite because we don't have the resources, and some things may not get done and there will be consequences. But we need to be, council, whoever it is, needs to be informed on it.
Through you, Chair, perhaps just to, I don't know if it's not me, I'm not the chair to wrap this up, but can we just make sure that this is captured in our follow-up actions? To be picked up by whatever the committee looks like in December or March or whenever it is. If we've got to focus on it, it actually ties us back to the conversation that we're having here now, understanding all the risks and the concerns that have been shared by the committee. But let's lock it in as a follow-up action to be picked up at a future.
Thank you, Councillor Day. So what we've got, right, is I think we're going to the recommendations. I was on the screen, I hope, right? So we're going to receive, obviously, recommendation 1 is done and dusted, right? I think we receive the risk management policy, right? Sorry?
Also move.
Can I just, no, and I think, right, I want probably some debate with both staff and the committee. What recommendation 2 is to me is I think we need, right, reflecting Councillor Dave, right, is that we're actually recommending, and I think this is a recommendation to council, right, and it might be the new council, right, that the risk management policy framework and subsequent consequences be discussed, might be brought to the new council for consideration, noting the challenges, right? I don't know the exact words, I'm not a wordsmith, right? But Councillor Figg, you had some comments.
Oh, no, I was just happy to second the first recommendation.
Oh, first recommendation, I was actually want to take them 1 and 2 together, right? Councillor Dave, you got?
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. Chair, but just to come back, I'd just like to still see it noted in the follow-up actions.
Oh, in the follow-up,
I think if it's noted in the follow-up actions, I think that would be good.
Yep.
But you're possibly trying to tie that follow-up action into this recommendation,
I
which
am.
I think
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Could I just share what I've got written down as a follow-up action? Maybe
sure.
that
Yeah.
would assist.
Yeah.
So review the role of the Risk and Assurance Committee for the 2025 to 28 triennium and resourcing required to deliver that work program, include consideration of the risk management framework.
Okay. Yep. All right. If that's in the follow-up action, I'm
Yeah.
comfortable. All right.
And through you, Chair, those follow-up actions will go to the new council. So
Okay.
they don't disappear at the end of the training, they get put to
Brilliant. Thank you.
the
All
new.
right. So, okay.
So I'm just wondering if that's needed to be captured in this recommendation, if it's been captured as a follow-up. You may feel it needs to be a little bit
And
stronger.
can I, just to close it off, right? I think I'm probably right. Well, actually, it's actually in the, maybe we change it slightly, noting the following, the follow-up actions, right? So we've actually recorded that there are follow-up actions that have actually been considered.
So what happens to this policy in the meantime?
We received it, so we get on with it,
Are
right?
you receiving it as is?
As is.
Because we haven't got that anywhere.
Yeah,
we
no,
have.
I was sitting in
Oh,
front.
cool.
It was it right?
Cool. And the policy that I was planning to bring in December, the appetite one, is pointless bringing that now or still bringing that? I'm just seeking clarity because it's right now it's out of date.
Yeah.
And I don't like my policies out of date.
No.
You, as Chair, that policy is probably as most important. currently.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it drop.
Yeah.
If I might suggest a way forward, I think we continue with life as normal. This is just an additional thing that will be of benefit to the committee going forwards. I don't think we should stop work
No,
until this is
absolutely.
done. I
Yeah.
think we just keep going. And this is just an activity that hangs in the background that will tick off when we have capacity.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy with that, absolutely, right?
Can
Are
I
you
just,
happy with those suggestions?
I'm happy, very happy with those words. Thank you very much.
Just-
Yes, I'm happy to move.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
moving.
Oh, no, I think we're done.
I just from a procedural perspective, are we not doubling up an action that already exists? Why do we capture it in follow-up actions and then as a resolution?
Can I speak to that, Chair?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think given the nature of the discussion around that action and some of the concerns that were shared, I think it is good to have it captured there as a recommendation, noting that it's in the management framework, risk and assurance. And I just think that that's quite good because there was a large amount of debate in that rather than just having it sit there in your follow-up actions line.
Yeah.
It's been captured that matter's been discussed. So I would see that as being, I couldn't see, as we were sitting at a risk and assurance meeting, I couldn't see any risk for not having it in there.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Day. That's because of the amount of discussion we've had, right? I think it's worthy of, right? And I will assume council sees these minutes as well, so they get the importance of it, right? And I think that's because it isn't really in, right? But we don't want to stop the train.
Correct. And then
Okay.
just one other question, the recommendation that's disappeared that actually allows us to accept this policy as it stands.
We received the management policy.
No, I mean,
There was one,
Oh,
Kezia, I don't know if you
I'm
can.
recommending
somehow bring that up.
go to the executive and that's
That's-
disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
with or without changes, it's the one that we just need to replace if we can. There we go. Maybe just give us the
Take,
administrative to get on with things.
well, that's almost what is actually in the first line, so we actually need. So,
Happy to move that without.
okay.
Without changes.
Okay, right, we actually haven't put all of those, so I'll take them one at a time then, so we're going to move in a second, right? So I've got move a recommendation one. Right, all those in favour? Those aye. Recommendation two. Aye. Against, recommendation 3, we don't have a seconder. Councillor Fee. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Right. Next item. Item 10.1. On the page, right?
26.
26. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, I'm happy to take this report as read and I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions.
This is protected disclosures.
Protected disclosures, yes.
The only question that I raise is there is often an exclusion clause in these sorts of legislations. So for instance, if I am party to a fraud or I have been a fraudulent party in some shape or form, and it says if I bring it, then no action can be taken against me. And I just wonder if that.
That's in the body of the report.
So the words are within the body of the report. I could look back through it, but essentially as you could have condoned an action in some shape or form and it's spun out of control and then you've reported it and the words say that you can't be then held to account for your role with this.
Yeah, I think the context, that's 2.3 is not legal advice, or I thought the way I read it, right? Yes, absolutely. If you're a party to a fraud or an event, you can't claim. But if you're
My disclosure, you've identified yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for example, there were, and I think I know where this came from, it was the Ministry of Transport fraud case. There are people who sort of were whistleblowers that were then moved sideways out the door, right? Because the person above them was actually doing the fraud, and that was the problem, right? But of course, that was actually, that no one knew that it was really happening. That was the problem, because it was so well hidden. But again, that's shown in the comments.
Yeah, yes, through the chair, I think the key word in there is that they can't be held liable for reasons of that disclosure.
Correct.
That is about the disclosure. If the activities that the disclosure related to turned out to implicate the person who made the disclosure, then that would be dealt with through the activity.
Yeah. Right.
And I get that, but I just wonder as to how that could be interpreted.
We can look at that. We can look at that.
Just through your chair. Just to check with Leanne, you made an earlier comment with regards to the fraud reporting that if you're talking about it, you're making it easier. I'm assuming this is the same conversation that's being had at the same time. I would assume that the two fit together and they dovetail in. So this is an ongoing discussion with staff to encourage, because I think if we're encouraging, then we're potentially going to flesh anything out or discourage at the same time.
Correct. All right. So do I have all right, no further discussion. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Dave. Do I second it? Mayor Andy, all those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Annual privacy update, page 28.
Certainly, thank you. So the next report presents our annual privacy update. Again, I'll take it as read, noting that there are no minor or significant breaches to report. Happy to take questions.
Happy to move?
Happy to move.
I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you again. Carried. Next item, 10.3, health, safety and wellbeing, page 30.
Thank you. This is our standard health and safety report, which presents our dashboards and an update on our health and safety work plan. I will take the report as read, but very happy for any questions.
Thank you. I've got no question, but I do have a comment. Right, now circle back to what we talked about in terms of the. Right, it is noted that there are in here, right, that sites, so because it's checks do happen, right? So we are noting that we did it, right? So that's good, right? Just, yeah. Any other questions, comments on this report? All right. We've got a recommendation there that the health, safety and wellbeing update be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Simon, do I have a seconder? I think Councillor Picky on screen there. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Next item, 10.4, our internal audit program. Thanks, Lorraine.
So, okay.
Take your
Chair.
report as read. Yep.
Yep, take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Signalled that the Koha will continue to be a difficult area. And that I don't know if there's any better way of handling it.
All right, noted. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Just for, through the chair, just so once we've finalised those two audits that we finished at the end of last year, we will bring any recommendations to the committee, I'm assuming in December.
Right, thank you. Are you comfortable, that the work plan, right? What we've done, right? Great, right? That we're actually comfortable we've got the appropriate resources to do what's proposed for 25-26.
Through the chair, most of the big audits are externally contracted, so whether it's PwC, we're just engaging right at the moment to do our KiwiSaver PAYE, so it's an external, and yes, it does impact on Sharon and her team, but we believe we've got that managed, and a lot of these are across different teams, so we believe we should get this done.
Okay.
All going well.
Just in line.
Just checking.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Appreciate that.
Councillor Simon.
Can you clarify in the program, the blue and the green colour and the ticks?
I can. The blue were fully completed by 30 June. The community engagement is in a different report, if I recall right. I'm trying to think how we do our community engagement. I'm just going to look and see what I wrote. Can't remember if we did that one.
No, we didn't do that one.
No, so that's one that's outstanding. I think the green is what we hadn't finalised when I wrote this report. And just could refresh my memory. Community engagement, yes, we hadn't, the tax evaluation, we've done it, but we hadn't finalised it when I wrote the report, or as at 30 June. The cash handling controls and processes, I've commented on that, and there we've completed that. We're just waiting on the final report. We've seen the draft. Statement of service performance is done as part of our end of year process. And delegations, policy and complaint handling. There's a comment in the report on that one too, being finalised. So blue is completed, done, and being fed back.
No other questions? One more? Absolutely.
No, just a comment. Leanne, you and your team have been very busy and it's evident in what's been put before us, so thank you.
Okay. All right, so we've got a recommendation there. Do I have a mover? I'll move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fee. No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Next item, our 10.5 financial risk report. Thank you again, Lorraine.
Again, just a couple of things of note in the financial risk report. We've got a quarterly report provided by Bancorp, which is appended. Made a note there in 3.3.3 around Cost of funds was sitting at 4.52%. Excluding the services, we've done a quick calculation, and including the services, it's a 0.04% difference. And apart from that, I'll take your questions.
Okay. Can I just, before we debate, right, I think we've got a very minor breach in terms of our policy, the Treasury policy. And in terms of the recommendation, I think we should actually note that we're actually outside of policy and that we're taking steps to get inside of policy.
Had we actioned the, prevented the breach, it would have cost $40,000 as an interest we didn't need to spend. So it was a risk I was prepared to take.
Absolutely, right? But I'm just saying we're acknowledging it, right?
Yes.
And you're taking steps to rectify it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hence, we have a risk policy that we've assisted. Risk
100%.
assessment policy.
Yeah.
And it's agreed to
Can I,
take some
can I,
risk.
My
can I,
tolerance was okay.
can I say in terms of the recommendation, noting the minor breach, right? And that there are steps being taken to rectify it, right? Because to me, I have had robust discussions with auditors before, and when you've got something like this in your hip pocket to put in front of audit, it actually saves you make it. Saves the debate with audit. The committee knew about it, they approved it, and moved on. Any other discussion on the report?
3.5.1, page 45. Just the unpaid accounts increased by 256. Is that an increasing, are you seeing an increasing trend with that?
I'll let you give more details. I did look more intensely, I have to say, at the rating one, so I'll let Lorraine answer first.
Just as an overview, the longer term outstandings, the total number went up, but the dollars went down. I'm not sure if that's. Yeah,
It's more the number of people that are getting into this situation where they are falling behind.
Anecdotally, yes, there are more people getting behind because it's harder out there. We haven't really got the trend.
No, although through the chair, I did look at penalties. That was the one I took note of. It increased by 4 people. And the percentage, when I removed that impact of the 4, the percentage increase of penalties basically reflected our rates increase. And to me, you would expect if your rates are going up, the outstanding penalties will move by a minimum of that percentage and then allow for any increase. I was expecting to see a higher number and I was quite surprised.
Mayor Andy?
Yeah, I know that these figures relate to year-end position, but where in our reports are we going to capture that we have actually gone through a process with regard to 3 individual properties, of which we have sold 2 properties subsequently. And I know that the dates in here don't quite match that.
No, but that was in our last reports to finance and performance, when we did our end of year remissions, rebates, penalties and so forth. And we did the annual one, we presented that at the finance performance, which is where it sits.
Yeah.
And we noted on those 3 properties there.
I just wondered whether there should be any note that we've been through those processes within this.
When was it done?
Not dying.
They were finalised in July. We commenced them last year. One got resolved, so we never had to go down that path, and the other 2 were completed early July. And we just formed that as part of the annual summary of our rates impacts that we presented. We could include any updates in the last dashboard and some of the actions we're doing that might meet not in the actual dashboard, but our commentary, we could add a
Yeah.
narrative next time we
I
start a
just
process.
expected to see something somewhere.
Yeah, I did do that through the chair, but
Councillor Simon?
Just a point of clarification, if council does sell a property, in this situation, we get our rates back, hopefully, that we are owed. And, the money above that, if there is some, that goes back to the owner.
Goes
it goes to the public trust
Trust.
and the owner has to apply for it. So
Right.
typically, if we do an abandoned land or property sale, we do it in partnership with Horizons Regional Council, because usually if one's outstanding, both are. And then we resolve the cost of that sometimes on a pro rata, sometimes we can clear it all.
Yeah.
And then should there be surplus, that goes to the public trust and that prior owner can apply for that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify? That's when it's an abandoned land and then you don't have the owner, but if you're actually doing a rating sale, if someone is still actually even, is that right? If someone is actually.
Correct, we've just done one and the difference that we collected went to the public trust and they apply there. And that is legislation.
Wow. Sorry, it's a while since I've had to do one, it's like 23 years, 24 years later, right? So yes, okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm just thinking there should be a note to say that we have done this because they are rare.
Oh,
Very.
very like, I've got about one, I think, when I was in 12, 14 years of the Western Day, yeah. All right, any further? Yeah, absolutely.
Just a clarification, with the debtors, for example, like many people pay their rates on an AP or a monthly basis. And sometimes they might be ahead and sometimes they might be behind because of that process. If you do fall behind because of that process, are you recorded in the debtors or is that separated out?
Sorry, the rates.
So just if you pay monthly with an AP or direct debit, rates are due in a certain period of time in a quarter. Sometimes that might not match, and so that you in effect on one quarter you might be $100 behind. Is that $100 recorded as a debt?
It is recorded as outstanding. If we have an agreed program payment plan in place, they typically will not be penalised for that.
Yeah.
Unless it goes post 30 June.
But
They
it
do
is
show-
recorded
they-
as a debt.
Yes,
They do show it.
it's an outstanding, correct.
Is there any understanding of how much in figure?
No, that would be a lot of work that to no value.
I agree.
What we do show-
My question.
What we do show there is that paid in advance, and that's where people are just paying.
Yeah.
They often pay more than they need to,
Yeah.
or they're paying ahead of their instalments.
Thank you.
Anything further? No. So we've got a recommendation there that I'm happy to move. You have a second?
One more question.
Oh, one more question?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
almost out of time,
That's the
councillor.
last one. Page 45, summary debt 3.6.3. Just the resource consents. The resource consents, there are quite a few outstanding payments on the resource consent. Do we issue the resource consent before we get paid?
I really hope we don't. But I can't answer that. I haven't got the.
Sorry,
I
I've
haven't
just
got
been
the
through the
process yet.
process.
Can I answer that from legally you can't? So what often happens is, right, you've got to pay a deposit, right? And if that costs more, then legally you can't withhold the issue of the consent, right? It's hugely problematic with the legislation, right?
However,
In effect,
however, Chair, if your resource consent is linked to a triple C, you can't do one without the
Oh,
other.
correct.
So therefore, you would have a delay in the process and you would have an outstanding consent fee to that process.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something we withhold is the certificate of completion until payment is done.
Yeah. There is what I have seen elsewhere. I don't know the details here. There are a number of councils that are having trouble where someone has applied for a consent, they paid a deposit, and then the consent has been declined, and there's still a fee payable because the work's been done. That is significantly problematic.
Yeah. Across New Zealand.
Yes. And then they go and do another one, and you can't stop them from applying for another one. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Okay, sorry, councillor B.
However, a normal process is that basically the inspector won't come until the bill is paid.
Oh.
So, yeah.
That's for a building consent, this is
Oh,
for
sorry.
resource consent.
I'll beg your pardon, yeah.
Yeah, Andy?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues that I think we're facing now in our district in terms of rating and is, my guess is that we have probably over 100 plus tiny homes that have been built and don't have to go through these formal consenting processes, don't get added to the rating database, but continue to use our parks, our libraries, our pools, and our roads, and every other facility. And we have an extraordinary number of them popping up. And how we deal with that is difficult because there's no legal requirement other than they are meant to notify council after they've been completed that they have completed, but there's no mechanism for us. And some of these structures and houses are quite substantial.
Can I just make I think it's going to get worse with the government saying is you no longer need a building consent for a granny flat.
We'll capture them if they need to be, get a Toby or a connection of some form. That's typically how we try and capture them.
But that's.
But when they don't, because we outsource our bins, I don't get it that way either.
Unfortunately, with these, they just make use of the existing connections.
I know.
There's no new connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I did just raise the issue with a CCO for water. If we aren't aware of what's going on in that space in a couple of years' time, we aren't going to be able to capture that change. So then within that negotiation process, maybe that should be raised.
And I think part of, without answering for Leanne, right, that I think is part of the transfer of responsibilities. There's a huge amount of work about what information is held by council, how is that transferred, and the ongoing updating of that information is going to be a challenge for all local authorities, but so yeah, I think that to me is a massive piece of work. It's about, and the other question, not back onto the through water stuff, but it relates to rating. Is the new water services entity going to have their systems up and available by 1 July 27, or is council going to be collecting? Don't answer the question now.
We have those conversations already.
I know you are, yeah, all right?
Yeah.
But that's only that much of the whole issue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. But I think, look, rating, and I'm pleased to see that, Leanne's going to be doing a rating review, right? This adds to your workload, right? But I absolutely agree with the mayor. That is a massive problem, and it's going to get worse right across the country.
Have huge numbers of them. They're not going to be captured under that law either.
No.
If they do individual sites and water meters is about the only way we'll capture it.
But then, as Arno has already pointed out, if they connect up to an existing connection and you've got a naughty plumber that connects the wastewater up as well, you don't know about it. Right. Okay, 10.5, we've got I've moved. Do I have a seconder? Now, Councillor Simon, all those in favour? No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. 10.6, outstanding Audit New Zealand management actions.
Again, this is our regular report back, unchanged since our last report. Still 15 issues outstanding, 10 ready to close, so waiting for our Audit New Zealand, and 4 others, and 1 ongoing. 4 others that are in progress and 1 ongoing.
So we look forward in due course to Audit New Zealand's updated management letters where they'll actually have all these as being closed.
One question, none of the outstandings pose any risk? And it's good to hear that we've got 10 about to close. The outstandings aren't causing any concerns, no risk to council.
We've got no reds, which is really good. We've
Yeah.
got recommended and beneficial, but nothing screaming at us, which is really, really good. I'm hoping these will all close off in due course.
My only comment is that it would be interesting to see on the bottom of page 57 that the credit card for the mayor is downwards through the organisation rather than the one up, which has been audit's recommendation. But it'd be interesting to see their response. That's what's happening.
It's interesting because the credit card actually also comes through me as and it's in our sensitive expenditure, so it actually comes through me as a sign off. So we actually do cover. We make sure we don't do, and I've taken this recommendation from Audit New Zealand, actually, we make sure we don't have a circular one.
Yeah.
So between the 3E, the CE, the mayor and the deputy mayor, we've got that done well. And we also then have it signed off by me.
No, that's fine. Just noting that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a recommendation there that report be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Fee, seconder. Councillor Dave, all those in favour, please say aye. Please carried. Last item, 10.7, risk pool update.
So RDC is a shareholder of Risk Pool. We have a 0.31% shareholding of Risk Pool. And of note is there will be continued calls on the shareholders of Risk Pool until such time as all their outstanding matters have been resolved. We don't know how long that will be. And RDC will continue to carry the liability to Risk Pool, albeit small, while these remain outstanding or cases remain outstanding.
It will sit as a liability contingent on our annual report. We are a low risk, which is great, but we can't make it go away either.
Councillor Simon?
Do you know what that liability is? I know it's.
No, sorry.
Can I might be able to help. I actually had it as part of my independent chairs, sit with a number of other independent chairs. We actually had a briefing from, got an in-depth briefing from Risk Pool on this because it affects the majority of the councils. And they provide us a little bit more information. It's basically arisen because of a claim by Connected Living Council over a defective building rather than weather tightness. There is reinsurance available through the London provider. At this stage, the reinsurer is still asking for further information. So there's a whole lot of legal happenings in behind, which are obviously public excluded, but that's the chance. Well, there is a very small chance that there might be a greater call, but hope for Risk Pool are reasonably confident that this might be the end of it, because there's also we're coming to the end of the tail of Risk Pool with the 10-year rule as well. Councillor Simon?
David suggested that it was begun to wind down in 2017. So basically they took on no more risk. Did council replace this type of facility with something else? And what was the?
Through the chair, we have all of our insurances through our Aon broker.
Yeah.
And we're part of the MWLS, where we get a significant discount as a result of that joined up process.
I can provide a bit of history on this setting. Were you around when Risk Pool was set up?
No, but I was around when we set up the lease.
Oh, no, I was around when Risk
Insurance.
Pool was set up, right? So Risk Pool was set up because so now, right, at the moment, you've got the likes of Aon and Marsh who are able to get public liability, professional indemnity insurance. When Risk Pool was set up, that facility disappeared, all but disappeared. So Risk Pool was actually set up to actually manage that, and they took out reinsurance service. So there's no insurer provider, right? and it was a mutual fund. So everyone contributed to it until Leaky Homes came along. It was actually doing relatively well, right? It was
Yeah.
Leaky Homes, and the Napier City Council case was originally declined because it was deemed a leaky home and therefore outside of the risk pool cover. But Napier appealed it, and there was a little bit of dodgy building which needed rectifying, which wasn't a leaky home, and that's what went to all the way to the Supreme Court. So, Mayor Andy?
Yeah, Mount Two Council battled with one particular property for a very, very long time. Just let you know that I've received a letter from Tower Insurance, as a number of councils have, to say that the average insurance premium will come down. I stress that it is an average because what they are doing is moving to risk-based assessment of premiums. So any property that is currently sitting on floodplains, coastal inundation, land movement issue, it will be hammered probably. I've asked for further clarification from Tower around what properties are affected within our district, including any that we potentially own. I'm yet to receive information. They said they will be back in touch with me.
Councillor Simon?
I'm not quite sure whether this is that relevant, but the Taipi slip zone and risk pool, does that fit into that category? No.
Separate through you, separate to that.
Yeah.
It becomes the Taipi slip zone is a real difficulty. So there are about 100 properties within that zone, of which about 40 have been paid out by EQC in some shape or form. We have a very restrictive district plan in terms of there's a limited amount that you can do on a property. You certainly can't build a brand new home easily within those spaces. The community has asked, or some of the community have asked, whether we could rezone it. In my view, and I've met with the community, as you know, it would be difficult. But it is an issue that they could effectively bring to council. But the monitoring for us to go through that process, in my opinion, the monitoring would probably be requiring maybe 5 years monitoring to prove that the ground hasn't moved or isn't a risk. They would be battling with a number of government departments who would certainly say that you should not change your status. And there are some people within the slip zone who say that the water movement continues to be occurring and happening currently. So, but they will be hammered, I suspect, by increased insurance premiums to the stage where a number of them are either not insured now or won't in the future.
Just a council was involved with risk pool. Does the Taipi slip zone fall under risk pool?
No, my understanding is no.
This was around building consents and
It was-
building liability,
It was
public liability.
professional
Professional,
indemnity and
yeah.
public liability. So the only time it would be if there was a case, I think you're probably almost out of time now. You would be out of time, right? So you've had to board a case. Someone would have had to suffer a loss. They would have had to bring a case already against council for it to go into risk pool because the 6 years is up, right?
Yeah.
And most of these cases have been dealt with by EQC.
Mm.
Thank you for that clarity.
Okay, right. So I've got a recommendation there that the risk pool update be received. Do I have a mover? I'll move. Councillor P seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. This is our final meeting. If we just want to thank elected members for their contributions and their staff for their support of it. And wish the elected members all the best for the future. No further business. Declare the meeting closed.